Brothers uncover their heads, all sisters pray with their heads covered, and we face the east towards Jerusalem. Abba Father, Yahweh, Elohim, the Allah of Abraham, Yashak, and Yaakov. Covenant Father, Elohim, Yahshua, we thank you once again for bringing us into a month, into your Rosh Chodesh, your head of the month, your new month, bringing us into this 9th month. Yah, we thank you for the wonderful holy days that you gave us, and we thank you for these next months that we prepare to get ready, Yah's will, and to enter into your Rosh Hashanah, your new year. Yah, we ask that as we start this new month, Yahweh, to also be a new beginning for us, a new opportunity to repent, to look at our actions, and to make those changes that we didn't make in last month, Yah. For next day, next month, next year is guaranteed to know no one, Yahweh. So we ask that you give us the ability and the foresight, Yahweh, to start and continue working on these things that we need to fix. Yah, all these things we humbly come before you, and we thank and pray for your holy, humble, anointed Son, Yahshua HaMashiach. Amen. Mm-hmm.
Oh, what? Hey, Brother Mika, where's your white extension cable?
Right here. You know when you can plug it in.
All right, Shalom. My name is Yedan Yashua, my brother Yantin Yashua. Shalom. We back again. Again, it is Rosh Chodesh, which is the 9th new month of the year. So we're starting the 9th month, which would be the last month of fall. So yeah, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so it's the last month of fall, getting ready to go into winter after this month. And the title of today's new month class is Dedication of the Temple. Dedication of the Temple. And the reason why we're going to discuss this is we know that in the 9th month, you have, on the 25th day, you have Hanukkah. So we're going to take a look at that briefly and kind of examine, where does this come from? Is this one of Yahweh's holy days, or is this a tradition? And, what's in the scriptures versus, some of the Jewish traditions that come along with it. So let's get right into it. Let's go to Psalms, Tehillim chapter 30. Psalms, Tehillim chapter 30. And we're going to read 1 through 12. And, when I first came into the word, I associated Hanukkah with Jewish and, the dreidel and, the 9-branch menorah. I kind of I'm not dealing with that. That's Jewish. But when you look at the root of it, that this is very much Hebrew. Mm-hmm. And although it's not one of Yah's commanded holy days, it's still a tradition that we keep within our culture. And if we're going to keep any kind of tradition, as long as it's not transgressing the law, why would we not keep our own traditions? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I also look at the fact that it's not a set apart day, so to each his own how you want to deal with it, but we're going to at least look at it from a scriptural perspective. Hallelujah. Tehillim, Psalms, chapter 30, and we're going to read 1 through 12.
Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 30, verse 1. I will extol you, O Yahweh, for you have lifted me up, and have not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Yahweh, my Elohim, I cried unto you, and you have healed me. O Yahweh, you have brought up my soul from the grave. You have kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing unto Yahweh, O you saints of his, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. For his anger endures but a moment. In his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning.
All right.
And in my prosperity I said, I shall never be moved. Yahweh, but your favor, you have made my mountain to stand strong. You did hide your face, and I was troubled. I cried to you, O Yahweh. And unto Yahweh I made supplication. What profit is there in my blood when I go down to the pit? Shall the dust praise you? Shall it declare your truth? Hear, O Yahweh, and have mercy upon me, Yahweh. Be you my helper. You have turned for me my mourning into dancing. You have put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, to the end that my glory may sing praise to you and not be silent. O Yahweh, my Elohim, I will give thanks unto you forever.
All right. Let's move on to 1 Kings chapter 8. I think I missed something there. And the name of this was a psalm and song at the dedication of the house of Yahweh. So that was the name of the psalm that we read. And when you look at that word dedication, the Hebrew word for dedication is Hanukkah. So that's what Hanukkah literally means. It's a dedication or initiation. So the Hebrew word for dedication is Hanukkah, which is H2598. Hanukkah, spelled CHANUKKAH. And that's from H2596, initiation. That is consecration, dedicating, dedication. So that's where the word Hanukkah comes from. It's from the dedication, the dedicating, the consecration of something. And when you look at the consecration of the high priest or the sons of Levi, they do it 7 days. It takes 7 days for them to consecrate the sons of Aaron or the Levites. And then on the 8th day, you are now clean. And then now you're looking at, these feast days where you have tabernacles, which is 7 days. And then there's an 8th day, which is almost like a separate day, but it's still part of the same thing. It's like being consecrated those 7 days and sanctified so that you can enter into the house on that 8th day. So Hanukkah has a very similar theme to it with the 8 days that they have. So we're going to go to 1 Kings, Rishon Melachim, chapter 8. And we're going to start that at verse 1. And we're going to look at this dedication of the temple. Yeah, we're going to start this at verse 1.
Then Shlomo assembled the elders of Yashral, and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of fathers of the children of Yashral, unto King Shlomo in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahweh out of the city of David, which is Zion. And all the men of Yasharal assembled themselves unto King Shlomo at the feast in the month of Ethanim, which is the 7th month.
All right, so we see that this dedication of this temple happened in the 7th month. So this first temple that was built here was being dedicated in the 7th month, but Hanukkah is not in the 7th month. So we know Hanukkah is not coming from this dedication of the temple. Go ahead.
And all the elders of Yasharal came, and the priests took up the ark. And they brought up the ark of Yahweh, and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle, even those did the priests and the Levites bring up. And King Shlomo and all the congregation of Yasharal that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen that could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahweh unto his place, into the oracle of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark, and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves, that the end of the staves were seen out in the holy place before the oracle. And they were not seen without, and there they are unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the two tables of stone which Moshe put there at Horeb, when Yahweh made a covenant with the children of Yasharal, when they came out of the land of Mitzrayim. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, that the cloud filled the house of Yahweh, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of Yahweh had filled the house of Yahweh. Then spoke Shlomo. Yahweh said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. I have surely built you a house to dwell in, a settled place for you to abide in forever.
So, talking about Yahweh dwelling in the thick darkness, well, we know that he dwells in the third heaven. So we know the second heaven is dark, other than the stars and things of that nation. So the third heaven is where he dwells. But he also dwells within us, in our temple. And in us is a thick darkness until we receive the light that lights up all man, which is this word, this light that was in the beginning. Now, that's when we have light within us. So his dwelling place is also in us, in the temple of Yah. Go ahead.
Verse 14. And the king turned his face about and blessed all the congregation of Yasharal, and all the congregation of Yasharal stood. And he said, Blessed be Yahweh Elohim of Yasharal, which spoke with his mouth unto David my father, and with his hand fulfilled it, saying, Since the day that I brought forth my people Yasharal out of Mitzrayim, I chose no city out of all the tribes of Yasharal to build a house, that my name might be therein, but I chose David to be over my people Yasharal. And it was in the heart of David my father to build a house for the name of Yahweh Elohim of Yasharal. And Yahweh said unto David my father, Whereas it was in your heart to build a house unto my name, you did well that it was in your heart. Nevertheless, you shall not build the house, but your son that shall come forth out of your loins, he shall build the house unto my name.
All right, so that is also spiritual. You have Shlomo, who built the physical house, which was going to be destroyed. And then you also have Yahshua, who also built a house in us by building the body, by coming here and allowing a place for us to now retain the spirit. Being that he came down here and did his sacrifice and went back up, we were now being able to disseminate that spirit, that Holy Spirit and the comforter that came to us. And this was also a man that came forth out of the loins of David. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Go ahead, Elder.
Should we also add, brother, in that same note you said that, Yeshua also built the house within us, is that we also have a part to play in that too. Even that the door open, he built the house, but we have to also receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about, extending the door and knock, that means he's knocking on the heartstrings. So you can open the door so you can come in to
Right.
dwell with us. But if you decide that you want to dwell with the Most High and Son of the Most High, you have the right to say no. Now, granted, people will say, but we have the right, or we have a choice, why can't we do something else? Can we live without the Most High?
Mm-hmm.
You see, that is the problem right there. Because who built this world? Who built the heavens? Who built us?
Right.
That's the Most High. And if you do not decide to live the Most High, what else do you have?
Right.
Lake of fire?
It's not gonna be, three choices. Liquor fire, being in the kingdom with him, and then what, oblivion, or you decide to walk on your own, where are you gonna go? See, that's the problem most people don't think about. If you don't decide to make a choice to be with the Most High,
Right.
where are you gonna be when you created nothing?
Exactly.
It's like living in a man's house, or a hotel, or a place you rent, or home. If you don't pay your bills, you're getting out. Or live on the street, okay? Still, there's really nowhere for you to go. Nowhere for you to eat. Nowhere for you to drink. It's hard to live that way. But when you try to make a decision when you don't want to live with the Most High, what did you create? Where can you go? There is no street you can go on. There's no other world you can go. That's the thing we don't really think about. And that's the thing we should think about. To dwell with the Most High. And not live in a world of confusion where there's anything else false.
Right. Or living in the vanity of your own mind,
Right.
that you're believing something. And while we were talking about that again, they used that term Ethanim. Ethanim which is the 7th month. That's H388. And that is the name of the 7th month, or Ethanim. Now, this wasn't a month that Yahweh gave us. Yahweh didn't give us that month. Yahweh gave us 1 month, sanctified 1 month, Abib. Man gave this name here. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 20. And Yahweh has performed his word that he spoke, and I am risen up in the room of Dawid my father, and sit on the throne of Yasharal, as Yahweh promised, and have built a house for the name of Yahweh Elohim of Yasharal. And I have set there a place for the ark, wherein is the covenant of Yahweh, which he made with our fathers when he brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim.
All right, let's stop right there. Let's go to Ezra chapter 6, and we're going to see this dedication of this second temple. Ezra chapter 6. When you have, Leviticus and Deuteronomy and the Torah and all those books that are telling you the holy days, like these are my Moadim, these are my Moadim. Anytime you have something else in there, or other names like names of months that weren't given, by the Most High, then you definitely want to check the history and see, well, where are these things coming from? How did this come about? Why are they doing that? So if you choose to, take part in the tradition, at least you're taking part of the Hebrew aspect of it and not just, what's commercialized.
Hallelujah.
Well, he did. I don't think he said you could not. Just want to put it. I don't believe they said you could not go to the dedication. I believe Yeshua went to the dedication.
Mm-hmm.
In Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
But he was saying that that's not my father's 7 holy days.
It's not the Moadim.
No,
it's not set apart dates.
Especially
Right.
if they're trying to hold it in September. In the 7th month. Because we have 3 holy days basically in the 7th month.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's not one of them. But if you want to keep that dedication, yeah, well, you can go in, Solomon's porch, I think it was, and give thanks, but don't look at that as Yahweh will happen.
Exactly. It's not a law. His laws are not grievous. And when you try to force something into a law to somebody that is not a law, that makes it grievous, because now you're putting extra pressure on somebody to do something that Yahweh did not command to do. But on the flip side, you can't, rebuke somebody for keeping a tradition. This is like you trying to rebuke somebody from going to a graduation party. He's not worshiping the God of graduation. He's celebrating a milestone for himself. As long as he don't turn himself into an idol, like, this day now belongs to me. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's a tradition that we have in our time, that, okay, you celebrate, you graduated college or school or whatever. Cool. That's your choice. And we don't have no problems dealing with those. So you can't tell somebody they can't do it, or you can't tell somebody you transgressed the law because you didn't come to my graduation. So, again, these are traditions. If you want to keep this tradition, cool. But like I said, at least get in here and see where it came from. So Ezra chapter 6, we're going to see now, does this dedication fall on the 9th month? Ezra chapter 6. We'll start this at verse 1.
Then Darius the king made a decree, and search was made in the house of the rolls where the treasures were laid up in Babylon. And there was found at Achmetha in the palace, that is in the province of the Medes, a roll, and therein was a record thus written. In the first year of Cyrus the king, the same Cyrus the king made a decree concerning the house of Elah at Jerusalem. Let the house be builded, the place where they offered sacrifices, and let the foundations thereof be strongly laid, the height thereof 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 80 cubits, with 3 rows of great stones, and a row of new timber, and let the expenses be given out of the king's house. And also let the golden and silver vessels of the house of Elah, which Nebuchadnezzar took forth out of the temple which is at Jerusalem, and brought unto Babylon, be restored and brought again unto the temple which is at Jerusalem, every one to his place, and place them in the house of Elah. Now therefore, Tatnai, governor beyond the river, Shethar-boznai, and your companions of Pharkites, which are beyond the river, be you far from there. Let the work of this house of Elah alone, let the governor of the Yehudim and the elders of the Yehudim build the house of Elah in his place. Moreover, I make a decree, what you shall do to the elders of the Yehudims for the building of this house of Elah, that of the king's goods, even of the tribute beyond the river, forthwith expenses be given unto these men, that they be not hindered. And that which they have need of, both young bullocks and rams and lambs for the burnt offerings of the Elah of heaven, wheat, salt, wine, and oil, according to the appointment of the priests which are at Jerusalem, let it be given them day by day without fail, that they may offer sacrifices of sweet savors unto the Elah of heaven, and pray for the life of the king and of his sons. Also I have made a decree that whosoever shall alter this word, let timber be pulled down from his house, and being set up, let him be hanged thereon, and let his house be made a dunghill for this. And the Elah that has caused his name to dwell there, destroy all kings and people that shall put to their hand to alter and to destroy this house of Elah, which is at Jerusalem. I, Darius, have made a decree, let it be done with speed. Then Tatnai, governor on this side of the river, Shethar-boznai, and their companions, according to that which Darius the king had sent, so they did speedily. And the elders of the Yehudim builded, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo. And they builded and finished it, according to the commandment of the Elah of Yasharal, and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month Adar, which is in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king. And the children of Yasharal, the priests, and the Levites, and the rest of the children of the captivity kept the dedication of the house, this house of Elah, with joy.
All right, so this was finished on the 3rd day of the month Adar. Adar is supposed to be the 12th month. So this dedication is now happening in the 12th month on the 2nd temple. So you had the first one, which was in the 7th month, and then now you have this second dedication, which is on the 12th month. So how do we get to this 7th month or this 9th month dedication that they call Hanukkah, which is a literally dedication? Let's stop right there. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and get a little bit of history and background. Thank you. Brother West, you gotta make sure that that is plugged in there, because then the computer can't plug in here. And then this will run out. Yeah.
You don't have that book now.
First Maccabees is in the Apocrypha. So if you do not have access to the Apocrypha, you can always go to IsraeliteGathering.com and you'll be able to access for free any of the books that we read out of. So in Maccabees, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of history in here, and it has names of different historical people that we can verify existed in modern history books, so you can get a timeline of when things happen. And what you're seeing here is the temple being defiled by the heathen. Chapter 1, First Maccabees, chapter 1, and we'll start this at verse 1.
And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
So it's talking about Alexander, the so-called great here. So it's giving you characters in history that we can identify a time period, so we can see when this stuff is happening. Go ahead.
And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive.
All right, so what you're seeing here is he had such a great territory that he covered when he dominated the earth, and he died at a young age, so he ended up splitting his different territories to his different friends that he grew up and different generals. And this is how you're going to start to see a change in Egypt now, where a Ptolemy was sent over Egypt, and that's why you start to see Egypt start getting lighter. You start to see Asia start getting lighter. You start to see Europe getting lighter, because this individual right here, when he put his people in place, they started whitewashing these areas, and now you see in history things are starting to change. The Greek is now supposed to be white, and all these different things.
The Russians.
All these different people you're seeing are starting to get whitewashed, because the domination of all these different places under this rule right here. So you're seeing the time of the Greek and the Romans starting to rise up. And this is all history, and it's telling you right here. So you're wondering, oh, these people look like that. They've been here for hundreds of years. Well, how did they get to look like that? Because the original people didn't look like that. It's telling he parted all these different things. That's when now all of a sudden you got all these movies where the Egyptians is white people. Well, yeah, it happened from this time when you had Greeks and Romans and Europeans coming in, dominating the country and setting up shop. And what you see, like what they did in Cuba and like what they did in Dominican Republic and all these different places, they are shipping in and paying literally Europeans to come in and whitewash the island. To the point where in 1900s, like the 1920, Cuba was 90% black.
Yes, 90% black.
Then they literally paid Europeans to come in there and whitewash the place to change history. But they can't change these things that were written in these books. What they try to do is pull it out. But these Gentiles love knowledge so much that they stored this information for historical purposes, which is now benefiting us.
Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root of Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days there went out of Yasharal wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
So now they're trying to make Israel, instead of dealing with why is this happening to us, we are now saying let's deal with all these nations that we're not supposed to make covenants with, the 7 nations of Canaan that are round about us, and we're trying to run to them for safety, like, hey, this is going to help us. That's wickedness. All Yahweh is allowing this to happen is so that we just repent, so we can receive the blessings. But we want to find every way in our own power to alleviate the recompense for the transgression, rather than just going to the source and saying, okay, I need to get right. This is what I did wrong. Go ahead.
Verse 12. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen.
All right. So the custom of the heathen was to have these Olympics. That's where the gymnasiums came from, and Greco-Roman wrestling, where you got 2 naked men wrestling and all this stuff, or some of the African culture do the same thing. 2 half naked men sitting in bikinis wrestling each other. Hebrews didn't do all these type of things, not getting circumcised, and they had to get permission, because they would have got judgment on them for doing these type of things. But they figure, since now there's new management, they like, well, let's get, if it's groovy, let's do it. Let's get with the way the heathens do things.
Verse 15. And made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Mitzrayim, Egypt, with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death.
So you have Ptolemy here was put in place to rule over Egypt, and now you have other generals that are now fighting over territory because they want to control more than what Alexander, the so-called great, portioned out to people. They want more. Go ahead.
Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Mitzrayim, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Mitzrayim, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Yasharal and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold, and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Yasharal, in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Yehuda, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spoke peaceable words unto them. But all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Yasharal. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein.
All right, so now you wondering where these people got here. How some of these people got here. A lot of these people got here because they were put in the land by other heathens when we were destroyed. You see this also happening in 2 Kings chapter 17, I believe, where it talks about the Assyrians, how they got into northern Israel. Now you're seeing how some of these heathens are getting into Jerusalem. And you're seeing this defiling of the temple here going on. The sanctuary getting defiled and destroyed and looted and robbed. Well, this before that happened, that began with us. When our temple here was being defiled, were we being uncircumcised, which is basically saying, I'm not going to keep the covenant. Well, you seeing us, carrying on the traditions of the heathen and making covenants with people that we were supposed to destroy, much less make a covenant with. So the physical temple being destroyed, that's just a manifestation of what was already happening spiritually. For these people to even come into the land to begin with, much less come into the temple, was because we defiled the land and defiled our own temples. Go ahead.
Verse 35. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Yasharal. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her.
So Jerusalem is becoming a foreign nation now, where the people that are there are either in heaviness and mourning, or they were ran out, and they're shipping in all these people from all these different places. Go ahead.
Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness, and her feasts were turned into a mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and that everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
New World Order. It's the same thing.
And at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with people coming on into one accord and having one language and one purity, because that's what Yah's determination is. But is that going to be done in righteousness?
There's only one thing you can come to is righteousness. Everything else is death.
So the way that these nations plan to do it, and the type of laws they pass already, they give you foresight as to what their one world government is going to be. It's going to be corrupt.
Exactly.
Verse 43. Yea, many also of the Yasharalite consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and to the cities of Yehuda, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
So this is the same thing that they're doing right now. They're making these laws, Sunday laws, and all these different things to get us to profane the temple, which is us. We the temple. Not keeping the Sabbath, eat what you want, homosexual marriage, and all these different things are being put in place to make us all one. And one way you can get everybody one is saying, hey, the law is you can do whatever you want. Everybody's in wickedness. So if that's the case, then everybody's together. There's no sanctified. There's no group of people that are trying to be righteous, because the law allows everybody to do whatever you want to do, as long as you don't mess with their money. So let's stop right there. Let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 1. So all of this went down to the point where it got so bad in Jerusalem that, the people didn't want to stay there. All that was really left in Jerusalem was the poor people. That was it. And they were being destroyed. And anybody who tried to keep the commandments or fight against it was being killed. So there was big wars going on when you get into the book of Maccabees, and Maccabee means hammer. And that was the style of these brothers. They were like hammers, the way they came in and fought against this system. And it all brought us to a point where you had to choose between keeping the commandments or death. And you read many stories in here where brothers rather and chose death than to profane these laws. So we should keep that in mind when we, going through the things we're going through, trying to keep these commandments, where ain't nobody trying to kill us for trying to keep the Sabbath day or trying to praise Yah. No, they're making your life difficult, making your commerce and your money difficult. But brothers was doing this and risking their lives just to not eat pork, things like that. Go ahead, brother.
The brethren, the Yehudim that be at Jerusalem and in the land of Judea, wish unto the brethren, the Yehudim that are throughout Mizraim, health and peace. Yah be gracious unto you, and remember his covenant that he made with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob, his faithful servants, and give you all a heart to serve him and to do his will with a good courage and a willing mind, and open your hearts in his law and commandments, and send you peace, and hear your prayers, and be at one with you, and never forsake you in time of trouble. And now we be here praying for you. What time as Demetrius reigned in the 169th year, we, the Yehudim, wrote unto you in the extremity of trouble that came upon us in those years, from the time that Jason and his company revolted from the Holy Land and kingdom, and burned the porch, and shed innocent blood. Then we prayed unto Yah, and were heard. We offered also sacrifices and fine flour, and lighted the lamps, and set forth the loaves. And now see that you keep the feast of tabernacles in the month Caslu.
All right, so that's a little odd right there. It was talking about seeing that you keep the Feast of Tabernacles in the month of Caslu. Now, Caslu is the ninth month. Ninth month. So if Caslu is the ninth month, how are they keeping tabernacles in the ninth month? So they're talking about something else. Go ahead.
In the 184th year, the people that were at Jerusalem and in Judea, and the council and Yehudis, sent greeting and health unto Aristobulus, King Ptolemy's master, who was of the stock of the anointed priests, and to the Yehudim that were in Mitzrayim. Insomuch as Elohim has delivered us from great perils, we thank him mightily, as having been in battle against the king. For he has cast them out that fought within the holy city. For when the leader was come into Persia, and the army with him that seemed invincible, they were slain in the temple of Neniah by the deceit of Neniah's priests. For Antiochus, as though he would marry her, came into the place, and his friends that were with him, to receive money in the name of a dowry. When the priests of Neniah had set forth, and he was entered with a small company into the compass of the temple, they shut the temple as soon as Antiochus was come in. And opening a privy door of the roof, they threw stones like thunderbolts, and struck down the captain, and hewed them in pieces, and smote off their heads, and cast them to those that were without. Blessed be our Elohim in all things, who has delivered up the ungodly.
So they were able to take Antiochus out. They tricked him. They used a woman, to bring to his lust, to bring him in there, and then they took him out. And once they took the head off that snake, now we were able to get a little bit more control. So this was them taking back the temple and allowing themselves to now try to bring some holiness back in there. Go ahead.
Therefore,
didn't Jehu do that to his the evil men and separated them from the people of Yehuda?
You talking about what? The priest of Baal? Is that what you talking about?
Yes, and killed all them in the temple with their arrows and so forth.
I don't remember. I don't remember who that was.
We can get into that.
Yeah. But it does. It's very similar how they say, oh, we're gonna have a ball.
That's that was a party, big party.
We're gonna have a ball, and they got all the priests of Baal, and brought them up in there and locked the doors.
Killed them all.
Right.
Verse 18. Therefore, whereas we are now purposed to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month Caslu,
The 25th day of the 9th month. Mm-hmm.
we thought it necessary to certify you thereof, that you might keep it, as the feast of the tabernacles and of the fire, which was given us when Nehemiah offered sacrifice. After that, he had builded the temple and the altar.
All right, so this verse right here talks about the 25th day of the 9th month. That's the only thing you're going to see in the book about a Hanukkah on a specific date. You have to go into Maccabees. And then it talks about Nehemiah when he offered the sacrifice and the fire. Now, the tradition or story that they tell is that the fire burned for like 9 days straight or something like that. And that's why they got a 9-branch menorah instead of a 7-branch menorah. Now, we know Yahweh gave us a 7-branch menorah. Ain't no mention of no 9-branch menorah. And then you have one verse in here, and then now you got to go to the Talmud, which is some kind of oral tradition that's now, talking about, around this time, December or whatever, around the solstice time or whatever. Now you're having all these things going on. So it's very interesting that you don't see that directly in here. So if it's not directly in here and it's not in any of the verified writings that came from us, where are they getting this from? And with this whole New World Order thing and mixing things, I can kind of see how maybe some other pagan traditions were mixed in. So,
I got a question on something, bro.
mm-hmm.
Isn't it 24th, 25th to keep Turkey Day?
The 25th of what?
November to keep Thanksgiving, I think?
November is the 23rd.
23rd.
Right.
Because I'm wondering if it just passed my mind if it was something close to that.
Yeah.
The third Thursday,
Yeah.
something like that.
It's close. It's very close.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure if they was using that, you understand, to
Right. The original
go along
root.
with it.
The original root of where Thanksgiving came from. Right.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Right, which we know has a lot of different meanings. They try to say that's with the Indians or whatever, but then you also have the slaughter that happened in Turkey, the country Turkey.
Right.
You have that, and then you have the other little pagan rituals that they have. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was tied into some kind of pagan ritual. The way that these Euro-Gentiles took a hold of this and made this one of their key holy days over Passover and all these other things. So this is why I kind of was a little leery of dealing with it, because at the end of the day, these aren't the set apart days that Yah gave. But I can't rebuke somebody for keeping if they decide on the 25th day of the 9th month, because it's right in here. They decided to dedicate that. But every year you're doing a dedication, you dedicate something one time. After that, it's already dedicated.
Yes.
So that's where that 25th day of the 9th month came from. Now, again, why I don't really have such a big issue with it is because, like the elder said earlier, Yahshua kept. Well, not necessarily kept, but he showed up on that day. Now, he wasn't keeping the Jewish Sabbath day the way the Jews were doing, but he showed up. So, with the fact that Yahshua showed up to this, that gives it some level of importance, where you can't just cast it out and be like, I ain't going to deal with it all, because Yahshua showed up on that day. So let's go to John, Yohanan, chapter 10. John chapter 10. And anytime you got a holy day or something that you have to go read outside of Torah, outside of the Sefer writings to get an explanation of it, it always makes me weary of dealing with something. That doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, but it makes me weary because I'm like, well, where are you getting this from? I know I've been lied to so much regarding these scriptures that I don't want to just take something because that's the tradition of people that's claiming to be my people, but are not. So we're going to John, Yohanan, chapter 10, and we're going to stop here and go ahead and feast after this. John chapter 10, and we're going to read from verse 22.
Yohanan, John, chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication, and it was winter.
Okay, now that right there caught me off guard. Okay, if the dedication of Hanukkah is in the 9th month, then that's not winter. The 9th month is the last day of fall, the last month of fall. But it's saying in here, winter. So I had to look at the Greek and look at this word winter, and it was very interesting what I discovered. If you look at the definition, the Greek word that was used for winter, it was kimon or shimon. Now I'm wondering, is that what Michael Jackson was saying?
Shimon.
Shimon? I don't know. But anyways, it's kimon. Cheimon, which is G5494. And it says from a derivation of kio, to pour, akin to the base of G5490 through the idea of channel, meaning a storm as pouring rain, by implication the rainy season. Then it says that is winter, tempest, foul weather, winter. So that term for winter, or kimon, that was translated to winter, wasn't actually talking about winter per se, because it also includes a rainy season, tempest, foul weather. And you can actually see when you look up that Strong's word, G5494, you're going to see it being used for foul weather, or like when he says, oh, you know you're going to have foul weather when you see the sky red. They use that same word, kimon. Yahshua used that same word. And we know that if they kept this dedication in Jerusalem in winter, then that must have been talking about the dedication of the second temple, which happened in Adar. So there's some ambiguity there. Yahshua is not keeping it in the winter time if this is an actual winter. So I thought that was interesting, because I said winter. It can't be winter because it's supposed to be in the seventh month or the 9th month or whichever one. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 23. And Yahshua walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Then came the Yehudim round about him and said unto him, how long do you make us to doubt? If you be the Mashiach, tell us plainly.
All right, so Yahshua walked in the temple in Shlomo's porch. So he showed up for Feast of Dedication. That doesn't necessarily mean that he was keeping Hanukkah. He showed up, though. So the fact that he showed up gives some relevance. But at the end of the day, if he is going to talk to his people, he's going to show up where his people are at. His people are going to be here in the temple because it's dedication. Go ahead.
Verse 25. Yahshua answered them, I told you, and you believed not. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. But you believe not, because you are not of my sheep. As I said unto you, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me.
All right, so interesting. He's talking to the Yehudim roundabout that are keeping they're keeping the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah. And he's saying, you people are not my sheep. So I look at all these things when I'm trying to decide, how do I really want to deal with this tradition? And I'm like, the only mention of this with Yahshua, he's talking to the people that are keeping his feast like, yo, y'all ain't my sheep. So again, I'm not telling people don't deal with this. I'm just saying, let's look at the facts. Let's look at the scriptures. Let's look at what's going on. There's ambiguity right here with when is this being kept, because it's saying it's in winter, but we go to Maccabees, and Maccabees is saying that it's in the 9th month. And then every other dedication that you see in the actual Torah is on the 7th month and the 12th month. So if this is accurate and the Jews were keeping it on the right in winter, then it would have been likely in the 12th month. But that's not the 9th month. And then him talking to the people that are in the temple keeping this, he's saying, you are not my sheep. My sheep hear my voice. So that's all we're going to do today. That's just something to think about. Again, I've never personally kept Hanukkah. Because ever since I came into the word, I've dealt with the Moadim, the days that Yahweh set apart and commanded us to keep. Now, I'm not against keeping Hanukkah. It's just when I look at the scriptures pertaining to this, there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of tradition that's added in there that I can't read, I can't verify without going into Jewish doctrine, oral stuff. So that makes me a little bit weary. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to keep a tradition, I'm going to want to keep a tradition that at least is a tradition of my people, as long as it's not transgressing the law. So I would be leaning a little bit more to possibly keeping a Hanukkah than I would be to tell people, no, don't keep it at all. So every man has to seek his salvation with his own fear and trembling. Again, all we wanted to do was present the information on this dedication on Hanukkah. So that's all we're going to do today. Any last questions or comments before we feast? All right. Let's go ahead and end in a prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings. All sisters pray with their heads covered. And we're going to face the east towards Jerusalem.
Heavenly Father, Yahweh, most holy and true covenant, Elohim, Abraham, Yishak, Yaakov, we give all thanks in Yeshua's holy mighty name, Father, for allowing us, Father Yahweh, to worship you, Father Yahweh, to keep this Rosh Chodesh, Father Yahweh, in obedience, Father. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this word, Father, we allowed us to have, Father Yahweh. We pray, Father, that this word would strengthen our hearts, Father, nourish our hearts, Father Yahweh, and give us more nourishment, Father Yahweh, to think about, Father Yahweh, as we fight our way through this world, Father Yahweh, and fight the evil that it comes against us, Father Yahweh. Because we need all the nourishment we can get, Father Yahweh. We need to eat regular food, Father, and spiritual food, Father Yahweh, to nourish us as we do our walk with you, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise, Father Yahweh, for being so mindful of us, Father Yahweh. We give you thanks and praise, Father, for allowing us, Father, to be your children. Heavenly Father, we ask, Father, that your word go across the four corners of this world, Father Yahweh, to touch the hearts, Father, that you want to touch, Father. And we know your word has to be published, Father Yahweh, throughout the world, Father Yahweh, before your Son comes, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise for allowing us, Father, to be part of this, Father Yahweh. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Father. And we pray, Father, allow us to feast, Father, enjoy our feast, Father, and celebrate, Father, because you gave us this day, Father Yahweh. And this time, Father, to worship you and enjoy family. Praise you, Father, in Yeshua's holy and mighty name. Amen.
Amen.